Okay, welcome everyone to a new episode of Technique Tuesday. So this week I'm going to be recruiting the help of Matt Ogus to help demonstrate some of these exercises. We were both in California for the Natural Muscle Mayhem this year, and we decided we'd link up for this ab video. Now, before we get into the exercises themselves, I think it's important to keep in mind that while the abs will be built in the gym, they're revealed in the kitchen, meaning without a sufficiently low body fat percentage, doesn't really matter how well you train your abs, your six-pack probably isn't going to look its best. Now, generally speaking, somewhere in the 8 to 12% body fat zone for men and 14 to 18% body fat zone for women is going to be necessary to reveal that six-pack. So in a previous Technique Tuesday video, I covered isometric exercises for training the core, such as the plank. So in this video, Ogus and I are going to show our top 3 exercises for developing the six-pack, or the rectus abdominis itself. So the primary function of the rectus abdominis is lumbar flexion, basically rounding the lower back. So to train the six-pack optimally, we want to include exercises that are going to take the lumbar spine through a full flexion range of motion. And while weighted spinal flexion movements like crunches have been criticized as being risky, an evidence-based examination of spinal flexion from Dr. Brett Contreras and Dr. Schoenfeld argues that it's premature to say that dynamic flexion exercises like crunches are injurious in healthy individuals, and I've discussed why I think crunches are safe to perform in another video, which I'll link down below. Now, according to EMG data from Bohec, Behrens, and Buskys, you can see that while both crunches and hanging leg raises are both effective for targeting the full six-pack, hanging leg raises do target the lower abs a bit more, while crunches target the upper abs a bit more. So as a general rule, to hit all 3 rows of the six-pack, you want to include both an exercise where you're bringing your upper torso down toward your midline, like a crunch, and an exercise where you're bringing your lower limbs up toward your torso, like a leg raise. Okay, so the first exercise is the weighted crunch. You can do this on a machine or by using a rope attachment on a cable setup. And you want to grab the rope with your pinkies up against the handles and pull the rope back behind your head as you kneel down. And before initiating the crunch, you want to squeeze your glutes to position your hips and posterior pelvic tilt, which is going to help the abs get engaged over the hip flexors. Initiate the movement by thinking about crunching the rope both down and in. Only crunching the straight down might cause the hip flexors to take over more, and crunching in is going to force your lower back to round, which is a good thing. This is exactly the movement that the abs are responsible for performing. Your upper back can stay more or less fixed. At least there's no need to intentionally curl your upper back, since the abs won't contribute to thoracic flexion as much as lumbar flexion. And you can tuck your chin down if you find it helps you focus on flexing your spine better. However, the main thing you want to avoid is jerking your head up and down throughout the range of motion. So you want to crunch until you feel a strong contraction along the entire length of your six-pack, and then reverse the motion by allowing your lower back to straighten out. At the top of each rep, you should reach full spinal extension so you can take each and every crunch through a proper full range of motion. Now, in general, I like to load the crunch in a more moderate to light rep zone, something around 12 to 20 reps, since loading lumbar flexion heavily may still present a spinal risk. So while many athletes are able to do it without issue, just to play it safe, I think it's better to avoid really heavy loading on the crunch, in my opinion. Now, one of the most common errors that I see with the crunch is pulling the rope or machine down with your arms. To help combat this, you want to take a more loose grip on the handles and think about your arms only as connectors, with your abs doing all of the work. It's also really common to see people only flex their upper back while their lower back stays completely neutral. And this is a natural tendency for lifters because it's generally good lifting advice to keep a neutral lower back. However, the abs are an exception to this rule, since one of their primary functions is to round the lower back. Okay, up next is the hanging leg raise. Now, for the hanging leg raise, you want to hang from a pull-up bar with a roughly 1.5 times shoulder width grip. If you find your grip to be a limiting factor, you can use straps, which might help improve the mind-muscle connection with the abs by limiting fatigue of the forearms. From here, initiate the leg raise by rolling your hips forward and up as your knees swing up toward your chest or armpit area. And again, you want to think about crunching your lower abs and your upper abs together rather than simply thinking about lifting your legs up, which is most likely going to cause the hip flexors to take over. Once your knees reach the top position, reverse the range of motion by lowering your legs back down under control. And if you focus on using your abs to control the movement rather than generating momentum by rocking your torso back and forth, your hips should stay pretty well stable and locked into position when viewed from the side. And since this is actually a pretty tough exercise when executed properly and with good control, I generally perform it with body weight for 6 to 15 reps depending on the abdominal strength of the trainee. Now, one of the most common errors that I see here is simply allowing the knees to bend up without any hip curl component. While the bent knee leg raise can be a decent progression before going into the more straight leg variation, you still need to focus on rolling the hips forward and up, not just simply lifting the knees up. Just lifting the knees up without rolling the hips or crunching the abs is simply going to target the hip flexors and be way too easy past a rank beginner's strength level. Another very common error is using too much momentum, allowing the torso to swing backward and forward. Rather than cheating your way up by swinging, initiate the leg raise by contracting your abs from a dead hang. If you can't do a raise without swinging, you may not have developed enough ab strength yet, so you can start by using a Roman chair, which is going to prevent momentum, or you can start with decline reverse curls, also known as dragon flags, where you grab onto a handle, balance your weight on your upper back and shoulders, and swing your legs up as you crunch your abs at the top, and then allow your abs to control the negative as you lower your legs back down under control. All right, the third rectus abdominis exercise we're going to cover here is the bicycle crunch. And I really like this variation because it not only trains the rectus abdominis through spinal flexion, but it also gets the obliques involved through spinal rotation. So here you want to lie on the floor, place your hands behind your head, but don't actually grab your head, and bring your left elbow to your right knee by twisting your torso while crunching your abs. Alternate sides back and forth so that the leg movement looks as if you're pedaling a bicycle. However, keep in mind that just like with the hanging leg raise, the simple act of bending your knee doesn't do anything for the abs, so you want to focus on mindfully crunching and twisting with the six-pack rather than simply just going through the motions passively. Now, unlike the weighted crunch and the leg raise, the bicycle crunch is generally performed with a faster, more explosive tempo, so I'll generally program it for something around 15 to 20 reps. Now, the most common error with the bicycle crunch that I see is just moving your arms to touch the knee rather than actually crunching with your abs. So your arms should be locked into position, and the elbow to knee contact should be created entirely from spinal flexion and rotation. And guys, that is all that I have for this one. I want to give a shout out to Matt for helping me out with the demonstrations on this video, and I'll have his channel and his Instagram linked down below. And make sure you guys check out my latest ab technique video, which focused on the plank and the ab wheel rollout. Don't forget to like the video if you found it to be helpful, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys all here in the next one.